Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to look at multiple funds in the value factor category. One of the things that I mentioned in one of my previous videos was how a fund name can be deceiving, and when you look at the analytics, it's completely different from the objective of what the fund manager or the fact sheet is claiming to be. So, in the value factor category, what surprised me the most was that the largest five value funds in India doesn't even have value exposure. It's so surprising. And also, at the end of the video, I'll also show you the best funds that gives you actual value tilt, that is exposure to the value factor. That means that you're buying undervalued stocks. That's the expectation, right? When you're buying a value factor or a value fund, the expectation is that you're basically buying undervalued stocks, right? So I'll quickly give you an example by picking up the ICICI Prudential Value Discovery Fund. It's the largest value fund in terms of AUM in India. And what do I mean by it doesn't have any exposure is exactly this. If you look at the value factor here, it's almost close to zero. I think it's hovering around zero, right? You have a bit of size exposure here, but most of the returns can be explained by Nifty 50. Uh, but what surprised me the most was that it is called as value discovery fund, and you, as a someone who wants to invest in this fund, you expect it to have heavy value exposure. And one other thing from the fact sheet that I got was how they try to pick stocks from all the three market capitalizations, that is large cap, mid cap, and small cap. So it's not like across all the market caps together. So I think if you go to the fact sheet and go to their style box here, they try, so the style box I think values what they're highlighting, and it goes across all the market caps, right? And that's also what we are showing here. So in terms of market capitalization, it's kind of the size factor is coming from bit of small cap and mid cap exposure in this fund. So the main takeaway is that we took a look at this fund, right, which actually calls itself as a value fund, but it doesn't have any value exposure. Then it got me thinking, okay, let me find out the best fund that has the highest value exposure in India. And I took a look at the top five funds. So I already pre-selected. So as you can see, the ICICI Prudential Value Fund is the largest fund in terms of AUM. That's 51,000 crores in AUM. So I took the largest, large top five in terms of AUM, which has exposure to value, or at least claims that they have value, right? So in their name itself. So let's take them here and see whether they have value exposure. And da 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 da. Here you go. The value factor is essentially zero. It doesn't have any value factor. But more importantly, when I go to the style boxes, what surprised me the most was that none of them fall under the low valuation category. When you compare it to Nifty 50, some of them were in the high category. This is sort of in the middle, which is the HSBC value fund. But I expect it to be somewhere around here, because that's the expectation when you're buying a value fund. You're basically buying a cheap fund in terms of fundamentals. So that was surprising. So the largest five funds doesn't even have value exposure in terms of the factor based analysis, and also from style box, that is basically the fundamentals of the fund, that also doesn't have any value exposure. Then I was like, okay, let me order it by the value beta that we show here and see how well these funds, the characteristics of these funds are. So as I already showed you, so a lot of these funds, so I think we are rebasing it to 1.6 years because some of the funds in this analysis have only data for the past 1.6 years, right? So in the last 1.6 years, you can see that UTI Nifty 500 Value 50 and Motilal BSE Enhanced Value Fund has the highest value exposure among all the value funds, which has the high value exposures, right? And this, and I go to the style box, becomes even more interesting because you saw the two funds with highest value exposure, right? Which is the UTI Nifty 500 and UTI Nifty 500 Value 50 and the Motilal Enhanced Value. Those are the two funds with the lowest PE ratio here. So you can see the blue and the yellow line here. So it has the lowest PE ratio in terms of the value exposure. So I think what we have learned from this is that don't get, I think we should not be deceived or we should not believe the name or just go by the fact sheet. Always it's best to analyze a fund before investing or before even considering it to buy, because sometimes a name or even like, so I'll just quickly show you this as well, right? um, this is the ICICI Prudential one. So they basically say that offers a diversified portfolio of stocks that have high potential but are quoting at a discount to their fair or intrinsic value. But when you look at the fundamentals, it was definitely not on the lower end. So if I again go to the style boxes here, if you look at the ICICI Prudential, it's almost in line with the Nifty 50, right? It's not cheap in terms of PE ratio. It doesn't come under this box compared to these two funds, right? Where you can see that these are like almost in the lower part of the valuation, right? So let's not like just go by the fund name or the fact sheet, right? And I think that kind of sums up this video where we saw the top five funds in terms of AUM doesn't even have value exposure, which was completely surprising for me as well. And when you order it by the value betas in the last 1.6 years, you can also see that the best uh, funds that actually give you value exposure, not only in 1.6 years, even throughout its history, right? The first top two funds here as well, when you order it by value factor, are the Motilal as well Enhanced Value and the UTI fund. So there you go. I think that concludes this video. Thanks a lot for watching. See you next time.